Y'all remember on I think it was last week's stream or something like that we had did last week, and well, not a stream, obviously it was a show, but a segment that was done last week where we talked about this California was it some superintendent of equity fake job where the person was in California, well the job was based out of California, so taxpayer tax subsidized job called the superintendent of equity of some school shit, and the dude was living on a completely opposite coast in Pennsylvania or whatever. And apparently there's more of them doing that. Here's another story that was covered by my man Phil Shiver from Blaze. California education equity official resigns after being outed for living in Texas. So again, this only happens because they got caught. A second high-ranking California state education official was forced to resign after news broke that she permanently resided in a different state 1,500 miles away. Pamela Kadakia, who formerly served as California Department of Education's Equity Project Manager. Fake job. That job is fake, man. Was relieved of her duties last week upon discovery that she and her husband actually live in Dallas. They might be not my neighbors. Living in Dallas, Texas area. Based on her LinkedIn profile, Kadakia, 34, pursued a doctorate in education in Texas A&M University between 2019 and 2021. Before being hired by California, taught for several years at Richland College. Politico added, according to the public housing records, Kadakia and her husband purchased a home in Dallas area in 2019. The California Department of Education confirmed Kadakia's resignation in a statement to the outlet, noting that her employment violated a state law requiring state employees to live in California unless their jobs require them to live elsewhere. No, what happened is you got caught. The job is so fake, and it's basically seen as a money laundering scheme, which a lot of education-based jobs are, where it's just lining the pockets of a bunch of fucking cronies that don't really do shit. They might do stuff day to day that makes them feel like they're doing something, but it's not anything useful, worthwhile, that the market would demand for any event that your taxpayer dollars wasn't subsidizing. It's just a completely fake job, and they got outed because they wouldn't want to live in a shithole like fucking California. They just wanted the job, and they living in a completely different state. We sought to ensure that all our personnel were in line with new guys. No, you didn't. We accepted Ms. Kadakia's resignation, the department said. Kadakia's controversial work-life situation was made worse by the fact that she lives in a state where California employees are not even allowed to travel in official capacity due to newly enacted travel ban on states with discriminatory laws. And it's like the Texas one of 17 Carolina states off limit for state-funded travel from California because the states adopted or were considering adopting laws that purportedly support discrimination against LGBTQ individuals. That's probably okay. You can't have men running against women in sports and therefore bad. So they mentioned that this other guy, Lee, who we covered last week, was the superintendent of equity. It's funny, these equity-based jobs are when they are doing it. But this kind of goes with the whole Don Lemon thing and what happened with him as well, where these guys talk all this shit about Florida and they go travel and vacation in Florida. Same thing that's happening here where I don't know. Well, this person looks like they might be actually from Texas. They went to Texas A&M and whatnot. So maybe they just wanted a job out there. But this is why I've said before, if, let's say, the federal government was completely dissolved, I'm just using this as a hypothetical. I want it completely dissolved, make no mistake, but maybe it wouldn't happen like this. But let's say that there was, just for the sake of conversation, where the country was split in two, which I would rather it be split in 50, preferably, and then more after that. But let's just say it was split in two. And one side was more favorable to state socialism, taxpayers subsidizing shit like this and public education and more roads and all that shit that y'all love to be taxed for. And then the other side was more, all right, it's going to be more of a completely free market. There's a lot of people who chicken shit online, who put on a front online, who would not be living in the side that is more state socialistic. They will be migrating to the side that favors more of a freer market economy. It's just that right now, I'm not even going to say that it's like lucrative, because I guess in her case it was because she did have a job. So I guess, yeah, in some cases it is actually lucrative for them to have that position. But it's more socially acceptable than what it is to, let's say, I don't know, be like I am and be in a lot of these spaces. But most of these chicken shit, and you guys probably talk to them. You know creators, your family members who put on the front online, and then you talk to them and they're like, I don't agree with this stuff, but they will never say it publicly. It's a lot of what we deal with this within the South and Texas. I don't know if y'all have seen, there was some chart being shared around where they were looking at the exodus, and you're seeing all like these blue states, New York, California, where they get like, they had like a severe like decrease in like population by the hundreds of thousands on net, where you had on the other side and going like to Texas, Florida, Tennessee, and those numbers were going up because people getting the fuck up out of these areas, right? But not just that. I want to say the same exact thing that I said with the superintendent of equity and the other story. Same state. Imagine that. This crooked ass state somehow has all these people that are on payroll that don't even live in the goddamn state. This is one of the problems with taxes in general. And there's a lot of folks who don't understand markets and why it is that we advocate. And I'd like to use this last minute to explain that. Right? Just because, and this is something to keep in mind, that you cannot envision a world where stuff like this, or stuff that you think is valuable, I don't think people would consider this a valuable thing, but people think there are certain things the state is in control of, that they steal money from you in order to subsidize, that they can't envision a world where someone did that or that service was provided not being by way of the state. Morose is one of the big ones, right? It's Morose, the state pays for these roads, which is shit often, and the good ones are the toll ones anyway. But they look at it like that and they say, well, gas tax or whatever pays for this. And therefore taxes are legitimate because nobody would build roads if nobody would figure out how to build a fucking flat space to and fro. It wouldn't be in the business's best interest to ensure that their patrons and customers could, travel to their fucking businesses. If anything, what you're doing is it acts like almost like a subsidy for big mega corporate entities because they don't have to invest in that shit. Y'all don't want to talk about that. Nonetheless, on a serious note, you have to understand that this is not what we advocate. We understand that a handful of bureaucrats are not suited, or Congress folk or whatever, are not suited to make decisions on behalf of thousands upon thousands of people. It's impossible. It's an impossible task for them to do. They cannot dictate the price for that. The great Soul talks about that all the time, and being able to try to dictate the price of how something what's something going to cost with a market full of millions of people, and it's completely arbitrary, and you got these Keynesian economists who are just sitting there guessing. That is inefficient and largely gets a lot of what you see right now, and that's waste. Now, I'd argue it's all waste, but it's waste in the sense that you can pinpoint it, that's money just being pissed away, right? Well, they don't earn it. The government isn't a producer. Government produces nothing. Even the bad things that we agree that they do, it still uses your funding that they stole from you and future generations to then subsidize it. So, unlike a business owner who does not get grants or subsidies by way of the state, they have to rely solely on convincing their customer to invest in their product. Whereas to these other folks, they rely on a big pool of money, of resources that they can steal from current generation or steal from future generations by way of monetizing their the debt and monetizing, basically this money is not there. They can get the deficit and do all that in the federal level. By doing that, you get what you get right now. And that's a bunch of, we get to the Rand Paul's race report. They looking at pigeons playing slot machines. They get to piss the money away. It's the same reason. It's because government is not a producer. And just playing musical chairs with people, oh, we'll get my guy, it's going to change. No, it's not going to change. Just the nature of what it incentivizes, period.